started curling myself when I was about 7, because my father was always in the sport. So I started when I was 7, curled all the way up through high school, and then literally stopped my last year of high school, and I didn't start again until I was about 25. Yeah. Significant breaks. So when I started, I felt like a brand new curler. Well, my very first curling experience, my dad curled. His name was Pat Gauguin. I was quite competitive in curling in Moncton for years. He was like a club guy, but he did a lot for the Beaver Curling Club. He was involved quite a bit. He did a little bit, he won a few things, but he didn't go to a Bri or anything like that. But he was in some tankard finals, and he was competitive, but like a club player. If my dad was going to take me out for lunch, we were going to go to the club. Yeah. What I've been told, of course I don't remember, is my very first curling experience, my dad took me out when I was 2 and put me on top of a rock and pushed me down the ice. It was always my father taking me out. There was really no organized curling for little rocks at that time. It really didn't start until juniors. Basically, it was mostly just high schools. So yeah, it was my father would take me out, and he would put me on the ice and teach me how to curl and teach me how to slide, and with the little sneakers on to start. It was never any big gear. So that's pretty much how I started. And then when I got into about the high school age, into the teens, is when I really wanted to go more competitive. So I started getting involved with the Beaver Curling Club in Moncton, and they had a little bit of a junior program, nothing like what we have now. I'm kind of envious of the programs now. In the Beaver Curling Club, because we had a little program, and we had like little competitions, and that was fun, but I always knew I wanted to more. I think it was really when I got into middle school and high school that we were able to be more competitive, and that's when I really got the kind of drive. I actually remember, I think I was around 13 or 14, and I was in a mixed tournament, and I was gung-ho to be competitive. I wanted to do well, and we had teams from afar coming for the first time. It wasn't just teams from Moncton. We had teams from other clubs coming to play. And my very first game out, I played this mixed team from Fredericton. I had no idea who they were, and I found out years later it was actually James. And I remember we had pins, and we had to give them all pins, and I gave him one of our little club pins. So I guess it was meant to be that I was supposed to come to this club eventually. Yeah. So it was always a family thing. And when I lost my father when I was young, it was some way that I could kind of keep in contact with him, which is the reason why I put my kids into curling to begin with, so that they could have that feel. It's a family event. Any club you can go into, especially ours, you're going to see all ages, which is really nice. And what other sport can you play with your kids and really enjoy it up until you're, elderly? And then when I joined this club, it was the family atmosphere here, and the fact that I became really good friends with so many people in this club, and that's what keeps me. That's why I'm coming back year after year after year. The equipment is so much better. If you look at the type of rooms that we have now compared to what we had back then, I don't know who we were fooling. There was no way we were going to carry a rock down the ice with the equipment we have compared to now. The coaching is so much better, and it doesn't matter what club you go into, there's going to be people who are going to be able to help you. Even the way we slide has changed since back then. I remember just being this tiny little girl trying to figure out how to do a backswing. There was no way I was going to do that. And the fact that people are watching it more on TV, they're watching the Olympics more, they're becoming more interested in the sport, there's so much more interest. People know what it is now, and it's more of an athletic game now, and I'm really interested to see where we're going to go from there. First thing is I talk about the sport itself. I also talk about the camaraderie, about how I can walk into this club and I know everybody, and how I feel at home and I feel comfortable, and it's fun, and it doesn't matter how well I do, because we're still all going to be friends at the end of the game, and you're going to get your free drink or buy one, depending on how you do it. You could go out there and you could be the best curler in the world, or you could be the worst. It doesn't matter when you come off the ice. You're still going to be friends with the people that are in this club, and I think that's the most important to me, and that's the one thing I try to sell to people. Through the sport, I've met people that I probably never would have met otherwise, and we're best friends. And through this sport, I've been able to spend so much more time with my daughter that I probably wouldn't have either, because her and I can come here together. I would love to sit down and pick Brad Gage's brain. I'd love to sit down and pick Kevin Cooey's brain. I think those two would be pretty interesting, just to hear their stories and see what makes them tick. Also Mark Kennedy. Mark Kennedy would be a cool one to sit down with, and he's probably got a million different stories. I want to hear the behind-the-scenes things, because that's kind of what matters to me. Yes, I want to know more about how did you become such a good curler, and what were you thinking during that game, but I think it's more of the fly on the wall, like what happens behind the scenes, how much do you have to practice, why are you curling, what got you into it, what's keeping you going year after year, what happens after those games.
Yeah.
Those kinds of stories are the ones that interest me. The most important thing about this club that I love the most, as I said, is that I can come here, play with my daughter, introduce it to my son. It wasn't his thing. He still came for the social stuff. We're welcome with open arms, and kind of keeps my dad in her as well, because she never got to meet him. So that's important.